If you are with us live right now, I don't know if I'm saying good morning, good night. I'm not sure, but that was a heck of a first round for the NFL draft. I'm Sara Perlman with you now, a special edition of A Good Football Show, of course, recapping all that we just saw. Warren Sharp, Thor Nystrom, and John Daigle here to break down the biggest winner, the biggest losers from round one as well, the most head-scratching decisions, what we saw, and which teams were the most thrilled when a player ended up falling to them. And with that, you guys, there was quite a few surprising scenarios, I could argue. I think one, the smokescreen that got talked about, that really just got a little interesting towards the end when the 49ers took Trey Lance. The Bears ended up trading up to 11 and drafting Justin Fields. And then Mac Jones fell to the Patriots. Warren, I'll start with you. You look at all three of these. In your opinion, which was the most surprising?
I think solely from the we did not know. It had to be the number 3 pick because there was so much disguise behind that number 3 pick. I think with Bill Belichick going for Mac Jones, it makes a ton of sense, right? That guy was there. And then I think Trey Lance coming in for Chicago makes a ton of sense for them too. So I think the biggest surprise was just that number 3 pick and which direction that they were going to go. I actually think all these teams will be very happy with their quarterbacks. I can't wait to watch each of these offenses work with their quarterbacks. I think that there are strengths that each of them will fit into those schemes. I think it was a great draft for all three of these guys to get the players that they wanted. I will say the strangest thing was the trade down with Gettleman and who he ended up getting as a result of the trade up. But I think overall, all three of these teams won. But what surprised me most was just the end result of pick 3.
Thor, let me spin it to you. Rather than the most surprising, which of these did you like the most? Was it the 49ers getting Trey Lance or was it Justin Fields ending up with the Bears?
I very much agree with Warren in terms of it seems like the teams got who they wanted, or, like, and at good prices too, decent prices. The Trey Lance thing to the 49ers, I loved. I thought that was going to happen. And they did. And, just with regards to the smokescreen, arguably the best usage of smokescreen in NFL history, and they got everyone hook, line, and sinker with it. That to me was as big of a story as the Trey Lance pick itself, but that's an actual franchise changing type pick, whereas the Mac Jones thing would not have been. So, but the Justin Fields thing to me, just to answer your question, for me, that is the one where not only does it potentially save Chicago Bears football, it categorically saves Ryan Pace's job for another year. So he's going to get at least, one more. That was an absolute no-brainer of no-brainer trades for that front office.
John, I was one of the few people that up until the draft, I really thought the 49ers were taking Justin Fields. You can ask a lot of people I work with. I was so bullish on that. Ultimately, the 49ers tricked me along with a lot of people and took Trey Lance. Your thoughts ultimately on how they got to him, and were you surprised?
To be fair, there were a lot of smart bettors who were on Justin Fields, and to Thor's credit, he was on Lance, as he said, the entire time. If you listen to the NBC Sports EDGE College podcast, you would know that. Ward and I also talked about it today on our Spaces chat, just the fact that the number had dropped down in favor of Lance, but you should have bet it, 2 weeks ago, whenever that number was obviously ridiculous. Having said that, I will say that the biggest surprise is still the fact that the Bears and Ryan Pace got it right, perhaps for the first time ever. With Mac Jones on the board, it seemed like the inevitable was going to happen. And yet they popped up and made the correct decision and getting, in my opinion, the number 2 quarterback in the class. And it's somewhat not shocking because the league essentially blackballed Justin Fields and said all the wrong things in evaluating him this entire time. So it was always going to take a team that thinks outside the box for better or worse. And who better is that than the Bears that don't care about anyone's opinions at all? So I am happy for Hallis Hall and Bears fan because genuinely it's an amazing spot. And Allen Robinson is set to play with the best quarterback of his entire career finally.
Finally is correct. Yeah, I'm excited to see that. Okay, Thor, I know it's 12:20 right now on the East Coast, but your round 2 mock draft will be up tomorrow on the NBC Sports EDGE website. Let's stick to round 1, though, and just kind of think about the wide receivers that were taken, all in the top 10. Jamar Chase ends up going to the Bengals to be reunited with his quarterback, Joe Burrow. Right after that, The Dolphins, of course, take Waddle at 6. And then we have Devontae Smith. The Eagles trade up to take him in the number 10 spot. You look at these three with their teams, with their quarterbacks. Which fit do you happen to like the most?
It's sort of like we were talking about with the quarterbacks where all the fits were really good. Jamar Chase and the Bengals. I mean, we've talked about that a million times. It's not only perfect, but it's poetic and it's all these different things. It's those two guys came up together. They shot up together. Obviously, Chase won the Biletnikoff in 2019, most dominant college offense I've ever seen. It's really cool that happened. And obviously, we already know what they look like together. So that's the other cool thing. The Dolphins taking Waddle. I talked my take on this before. That I talked about was I thought about half the NFL teams probably preferred Devonta Smith on their board and half of them preferred Waddle. And it probably came down to the individual taste and the need of the specific team. The Dolphins were a team that, needed Waddle more. The Eagles, I think they're happy with the guy that they got, because like we talked about, Waddle's skill set just would have essentially made Jalen Reagor redundant. At that point, he has no value on your team anymore. So I thought those were all good. I totally agree with Warren's take on Kadarius Toney. I don't know what you're doing there. And you take him over Rashad Bateman, that's a joke. It's a joke. And the fact that Elijah Moore's not there, you traded up to get up to 20 to take this manufactured touch guy. So what? You're gonna have like 4 receivers now and the move tight end. I don't know what they were doing with that one, but I like the fits above. And Bateman, by the way, absolutely awesome fit for Lamar Jackson in the same way that Hollywood Brown was not a good fit for him. A guy who's always the throwing windows are going to be there, runs great routes, gets off the line quick, awesome ball skills. He can be able to corral balls that aren't right up, in right there. So I thought that was a really good pick as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of people happen to like that. Warren, I'll ask you, Jamar Chase to Cincinnati with Joe Burrow. Their offense, you could argue, is going to be very good yet again. Their defense, maybe a few question marks, but how do you like that?
I love it. And what I love, the saying reunited and it feels so good, man. These guys are happy campers right now. All these young quarterbacks, right? Every single quarterback here with their guy that they played with in college. We got Hurts. We got Tua has got his guy too. And of course, we have Joe Burrow. And I think it's just a comfort thing. I think it's a thing where these guys know what these wide receivers bring to the table. And, look, I was fortunate to get very good information that the Dolphins were targeting Waddle, and we knew that several days ago. And so we started banging the Waddle above Smith props pretty hard. But I think that what was clear that the Eagles were very tuned in to what the Giants wanted to do, because if the Eagles don't leapfrog the Giants there, I think the Giants are obviously taking Smith. And so the Eagles leapfrog the Giants, go up to 10 to get Smith. Now the Giants are like, we're going to trade down. And then they completely reach, like Thor said, for Toney. I think the fits of all of these wide receivers are great. I love the fact that the quarterbacks now are going to be, Burrow is the guy we know, right? Burrow is their franchise guy. Tua is going to be determined. And so is Jalen Hurts. And what both of these front offices, I think, decided to do was, let's get guys that they're super comfortable with, that bring a lot to this offense, and let's stick them on those teams and see if this guy's going to be our QB. And if he's not, we're going to go get a QB in the next draft, because guess what? 2022 draft capital, many GMs think it's worth more than 2021. And who is in the top 3 in 2022 draft capital right now? Philly's number 1, Miami's number 3. They're going to have plenty of weaponry to go up and get a quarterback next year if they don't figure out that Tua or Hurts is their guy this year. And so I think they wanted to exhaust those options to make sure that those were their guys this year.
Warren, live comments were coming in. People want to know how you feel about the Pittsburgh Steelers and what they did. I will say we'll get to that later in the show. Trust me, I have to open that up for now. Yeah. For now, John, you could talk about the New York Giants. You could spin this either way. Did the New York Giants lose out? And overall, your take on the Philadelphia Eagles ending up with Devonta Smith?
I thought the value that Gettleman got it just finally happened. Okay, it finally clicked for him. Joe Judge clearly has a voice in the room. He's listening to someone else outside of his own opinions. But then to just bring it back with Kadarius Toney, who's only played 92 snaps out wide the past 2 seasons. Mind you, the past 2 seasons where he exclusively played wide receiver because he's still learning the position since he was more of a gadget player throughout his entire career at Florida, as you know, Sarah. And so
Yes.
The fact that you're basically taking your best receiver, well, I shouldn't say best, but your best possession receiver in Sterling Shepard at some points off the field out of the slot, it's just not a fit. Having said that, I will commend the value he got since he did return more draft picks. But just to see all the other options there, especially because if his point is to protect Daniel Jones and what could be Gettleman's last year, that's why they outbid themselves in free agency, because it's not Gettleman's problem if everything goes wrong. It just doesn't make sense that he didn't add a tackle that continued to fall, in my opinion.
Okay, Thor, I'm coming to you on this one real quick. Explain the Raiders taking Alex Leatherwood with the 17th pick.
The only team that's funnier to watch their first round picks than the Raiders is the Seahawks, and we didn't get the pleasure this evening. And so for Mayock to come through for us again, a third straight Thursday night, I just thought it was fabulous, and it all the way out of left field. You know, which is the Mayock and the John Schneider special. Terrible pick, obviously, but as a Vikings fan, I was thrilled. You know, that the Vikings had traded down and they got great value for it, essentially recouped more than they'd lost in those stupid Yannick Ngakoue, you know, that 1-2 step they did or whatever. And they more than get that value back in the trade by going down. The only reason that at the time I was like, oh man, like I totally get it. They have too many holes where they need immediate starters, and they didn't have enough premium picks. You didn't have the second rounder because of Ngakoue. So I understood the thinking. But the only reason I was kind of annoyed or, you know, trepidatious about it was like, you just let the third tackle, in a 3 tackle class, you know, the top, you let him go by. You didn't pick him. And so now, you know, you're going to be stuck with Tevin Jenkins or who knows. And Vera Tucker, of course, was the pick of the team that traded up. Mm-hmm. They end up getting the left tackle anyway, and Christian Darrisaw at 23. And again, more than make up the equity lost in the Ngakoue trade.
And Thor, I know you'll be doing previews of both rounds 2 and 3 tomorrow with Eric Froton, so we do not want to miss that. Warren, did any other team, in your opinion, even come close, kind of reaching for a player like the Raiders did, taking Alex Leatherwood with the 17th pick?
Well, I think Toney, I mean, we've beaten this horse till it's dead, but Dave Gettleman deserves it. I don't know what they were doing there, reaching for that type of wide receiver. Look, I think that they got harnessed into thinking that they're going to go with a wide receiver. And the rumor was out. The rumor had left the building early that they wanted to go Devonta Smith. It was something that we knew like weeks ago that they were rumored to do. And then the rumors resurfaced again yesterday and today that there was between like a couple guys, but Smith was one of them if he was there. And you know, that the Eagles knew that. And so instead of trading down like crap, we didn't get our receiver, let's trade down and go with best value, best available player, something like that. They still reach for the same exact position. I just felt like that was a big whiff by Dave Gettleman. So, I mean, I want to pat him on the back for trading down, and that was great. 8 drafts, 52 prior selections, 0 trade downs. This was his first. Congratulations. He gets a participation medal now that he's been able to do this. But the value that he got for this particular player was not very good.
I kind of want to spin this. I was going to take this segment a little bit differently, but I think it only makes sense kind of with the negative talk that Thor started us off with. Going with the biggest loser of round 1, John, I will begin with you. The biggest loser, the team that did not succeed during the first round of the NFL draft.
Unfortunately, we've talked about a few of them that I think just made poor picks between the Raiders and Giants, which I guess we should have expected. I don't think they're losers so much as, and this may even set Warren up to torch the Steelers, but the fact that the Jaguars, with a second first-round pick, with a position that I wouldn't even declare really a need in the backfield, added a first-round running back, which, again, Warren will tell you more about. but it's just the fact that GM Trent Baalke cannot ever get out of his own way. This was first mentioned by Sharp Football's own Rich Rebar, who runs the fantasy content over there. And he noted that Baalke, in 6 seasons as the Niners GM, always drafted a running back in every single one of those drafts. And so it shouldn't be shocking, I know, that he again added another one, but the fact that they still got 1,400 total yards out of an undrafted free agent and James Robinson, still obviously on his rookie deal in his sophomore year, and then they just go and add Trevor Lawrence's teammate. It was an odd choice. So I wouldn't say the loser team, but I think that was an extremely bad pick for a draft that started so strong.
Right. You could have got a running back to be drafted in the first round, low 200s last week, all the way up to minus 350 this week. And Warren, I think most people that follow you know how you feel about running backs being drafted in the first round. So go ahead. Here's your time to tell me what you thought about Najee Harris heading to the Pittsburgh Steelers in the first round.
Well, I'll give you the take on this. I do have a couple of other teams that I thought swung and missed a little bit too. But if we want to talk about the running backs, we already know, we've done the research. You don't need a premier blue chip type first round running back. Number one, more often than not, you're wrong in your evaluation. And this guy actually isn't on the next level going to deliver the same production he was able to deliver in college and separate himself from the pack like he appeared to in college. Number two, your offensive line is the key. That offensive line, they lost their O-line coach at 2018. They didn't have him the last 2 years. The team has gotten worse. Their linemen have gotten worse. They're not as good run blockers. And then they lose some more linemen this offseason. This line ranked bottom 10 in 2019, bottom 2 in 2020 in terms of run blocking. They're not able to open up the holes. And we know that running is primarily defined by what offensive line you've got there opening up your holes and how many defenders are in the box that you're running up against. Now, I have no doubt that Najee Harris is a great running back. He was great in college. He's going to be a fun running back to watch when he gets into the open field and make some people look silly on occasion. But is he that piece that's going to take this team further into the playoffs? Is he that piece that's going to help them when they're dropping back to pass the football? I don't know that he is. I think an offensive lineman would have helped them out more. I can see what they're thinking. And actually, I'm glad that they were so predictable because we bet a lot on Pittsburgh to take a running back at plus money. And we bet it again and again and again. I think we have 5 total tickets of max bets on the Steelers to take a running back. So that was great for us from that perspective. Although initially I was betting under 1.5 running backs, laying a lot of juice. We ended up getting off of that. We ended up taking ETN under 30.5. So we lost a little on the running backs, but betting on Najee Harris is what almost made it a wash for us and was very, that was very good that happened. A couple of other teams that I thought didn't do as great of a job. I don't know what the rest of you guys think, but I thought Caleb Fairley, that I liked him back in school. I think he's a great talent, but the injuries were causing this guy to drop. And the Titans have this tendency to take players that have some injury history and they feel like they're okay doing that. I feel like if the Titans didn't do that or the Titans just traded down, they probably still could have gotten this guy, just a hunch. I know his agent, Drew Rosenhaus, is like this power agent. Is probably telling all these teams that you need to get him because there's nothing wrong. But it is a big dice roll to go ahead and get this guy where they did. I thought that he would be available a little bit later on in the draft. And then what can I say? Can we say Aaron Rodgers is a loser? We don't know if he's going to be out of Green Bay, but for yet another year, this team goes and does not address the offensive side of the football with their first pick. I went back all the way to 2012, and they did not address the offense at all with their first pick. They go DN, DB, safety, defensive tackle, corner, linebacker, backup for Aaron Rodgers to be his replacement, and now a corner again. I know their defense was bad, so you need to address it, but you're really doing nothing that's going to make Aaron Rodgers excited to stay there. And so for those reasons, I think Aaron Rodgers was a loser of this draft as well.
And people commenting on the show right now tend to agree. A lot of comments coming in, one in particular saying, if the Packers do not get a wide receiver in the second round, the organization's over. Meanwhile, the quarterback does not want to be there. Okay, I know there's a question that came in about the New York Jets. And Thor, I'm going to pose this to you. Just overall, your thoughts on how the New York Jets did in this draft.
They did terrible in the first round. We'll see what they do, in the rest of it. I guess, like Warren was mentioning, they did pick up some extra picks, but yeah, it's like when you get sniped in a fantasy draft and then, and you can't think straight. You're just like tilting like, and and I think they just made a mistake. Kadarius Toney shouldn't have gone in the top 20. I don't think he should have gone in the top 30 nor the top 60. Again, Rashad Bateman was there, but Rashad Bateman's going to be a starting really good X receiver in year one. Elijah Moore. These players are just better. Since I've said enough about the Giants, I toss out my other losers. The Raiders, again, I don't know what they're doing, but Minnesota sure thanks you for passing Darrisaw down the board. And then the Packers as well. Sort of echoing the point there. The joke I made on Twitter was that they don't draft receivers for Jordan Love either. And then the other one I'd say is the Saints. I didn't know what they were doing with Peyton Turner. There's some really good edges on the board right now. The Saints do weird stuff with edges. Like they overvalue Davenport and like stuff like that. They obviously evaluate edges, different than I do. But anyway, I didn't understand why you take him with some of these other guys on the board.
Yeah, well, talking about the edges available in round 2, of course, everyone can check that out on NBC Sports and NBC Sports Edge tomorrow. I know you'll be writing that up tonight, Thor. Okay, John, I want to talk about really the winners of the draft. This is going to be, give me 3 teams that you think succeeded. They came out on top here.
Oh, 3 teams tonight?
Yep.
Oh,
give me your top one, if not.
Okay, well, I do actually believe that the Jets drafted well. I know we all have differing opinions on Zach Wilson, but just the fact that they are clearly trying to go all in on his rookie deal and adding someone I believe is the 3rd best offensive lineman in this draft. Maybe I'd like to hear Thor's opinion on him because I know he's done a lot more research on that about Barrett Tucker. So just to move up and add him, I thought was actually pretty wise, especially since a lot of the sharper mocks had them drafting a running back, which would have been disastrous decision in the first round, as we've already talked about. So I will declare them my winner. And then also, if you don't mind, I have a couple wild cards. I'll leave some teams open for the other guys.
Bring it.
And I will say another winner is the grinders out there. Those that listen to you, Sarah, Warren's Sharp Football Analysis shows, of course, the college show with Thor, any show that I've been on as well, and just all the sharp content out there. I believe we were probably all in text threads, Slacks. You look on social media where we're all going crazy because as long as you were grinding the information, the props came out clean across the board tonight. So congratulations to everyone, including all of us. And yeah, the grinders were the winner tonight. And then also very quickly, underdogs Josh Norris, who set the record for the highest mock score rank in history, in mock draft history tonight. So congrats to him as well.
Unbelievable. Yeah, certainly a winner there. And you're right. I'm giving credit. I have concealer coming on from all day. I'm exhausted. So I think we're all winners here. Okay. Warren, aside from my makeup, your winners, who came out on top today?
Well, first, I do want to echo John because the show that we did on Twitter Spaces earlier today, right here on Sports Edge channel, absolutely crushed it. I mean, we were giving out tons of stuff. I do feel bad that I think Corey was on the opposite side of you and me, Daigle, on one of the props. I forget now which one it was, but I think it was Penei Sewell over we liked and he liked under, something along those lines. But at any rate, aside from that, I think he did great. And all the stuff we were giving out to listeners, I think really put them up.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of teams that we want to go after, I think 2 teams that drafted offensive linemen did a great job. Now, sometimes you just have to not mess something up. And that's exactly what the Chargers did. I could not believe that they were able to get Slater and not move up. There was all these rumors that they were going to move up. They were going to trade up to get one of these offensive linemen, and Slater just falls right into their lap. A perfect pick for them. So Justin Herbert is a massive winner, and the Chargers in general are a winner for not moving and doing anything there. Right behind them was supposed to be the Minnesota Vikings. And the Minnesota Vikings, I thought, and we thought, we bet them to take offensive linemen as their first pick. I think that was favored for them to do, but it was still like plus 125, plus 130. Minnesota trades down. And we're like, oh, crap, we're going to lose this now. There's not going to be a lineman for them. What's going to happen with Minnesota's pick? Minnesota still gets probably the same guy that they were going to get where they were, and that was Darrisaw. So they traded down. They acquire new talent. I think they got like 4 4 total picks and gave away 2 to make this move down the board. And now all of a sudden they get their same guy they were going to get plus future picks, and they needed help along the offensive line too. So in terms of, obviously, I love the quarterbacks, and we talked about those fits and how those guys are going to be happy. There's new teams. We talked about the wide receivers and how some of these GMs made moves to get these wide receivers, pair them with their quarterbacks. So all those quarterbacks are happy too. But if you want to talk about a couple teams that we didn't mention yet before, those would be 2, the Chargers and the Vikings, for the same type of reasons. They went after good offensive linemen, did it different ways. One didn't make a mistake. One traded down very savvily and still walked away with the guy they wanted.
And you talked a little bit about the NFL draft show that you guys were on Twitter Spaces. Also back tomorrow at 1 p.m. with Corey Parson, Thor, and Eric Froton, all on the NBC Sports football account. So you do not want to miss that. There's a tweet we're going to show here, and Corey is confirming it was, in fact, the prop. So, Penei Sewell.
Shout out to Corey.
Shout out to Corey for just knowing what he's doing now.
You crushed everything else that you said. That was one that we were on opposite sides. So I feel bad. I have to root against anybody that we're on the show with. But at the end of the day, I think, probably had a big winning day as well.
Corey has a lot of tickets. He's okay. Go ahead.
And
John.
to be fair, I sweat that one until the very end. I was not cashing that one until the actual pick was named. And by the way, the Lions did good in grabbing him. They could have gone a number of ways with many needs, but I know a lot of people had Justin Fields or a quarterback there, but the Lions, between receivers, at least Jared Goff is secured under contract. And so to start from the very bottom, from the trenches, and then protect your quarterback of the future, who we don't believe is Goff, of course, that way, I think was a great start for Detroit.
Okay, well, let me ask you this. Should Detroit have drafted a wide receiver? Someone's commenting now. What are your thoughts, John?
I believe they played the board once they saw that the top 3 receivers, and by the way, Devontae Smith, of course, interchangeable with Jalen Waddle, no big deal. But this year, does Devontae Smith really help you continue to rebuild your organization, which is what they're trying to do? Whereas, I've heard Thor talk about Sewell so much, and he compares him to Jonathan Ogden, I believe. And if that is the case, like if that is his ceiling, that's what he is for the next 15, 20 years, then of course you're taking that every time. So again, I think this selection was much more tremendous for the long-term outlook, which is how they should be viewing their team, than grabbing any wide receiver at that point.
Thor,
yeah, I just want to echo that real quick. You don't want to take the next wide receiver after a short little run there on wide receivers. I think it was a no-brainer selection. Penei Sewell is going to be probably, he's got the talent. We'll see if he stays healthy and everything else works out for him. He has the talent to be a Hall of Famer in this league over time. So I think that was a very smart pick by Detroit.
Okay, so to answer Brink's comment there, Detroit win. I think it seems like people were really happy, and you guys included with JC Horn. Thor, I didn't get to ask you because everyone else gave their winners, and I just put you on the spot to be negative about the Raiders. So here's your time. Tell me who you think succeeded in round 1 of the draft tonight.
Of the teams that we have not talked about yet, for me, the number 1 winner is the Bears. They come out of this the biggest winners today, and their general manager, most of all, for reasons we discussed before. I think he just bought himself at least another year. And then, the Vikings and the Chargers were also on my top 5 list. We already mentioned them. The Falcons, an underrated kind of a winner, but not, there's all sorts of eye candy out there for them, right? Like, quarterback, should we trade down? Should we do this, that? They stood put and did the right thing. I have Kyle Pitts rated as the 2nd best prospect in this class, and a lot of other people do too. For me, as a Minnesota guy, that pick reminds me a lot of the Randy Moss pick for the Vikings. Obviously played different positions, but I think he's going to do the exact same thing for that organization, and I think it's going to be the exact same immediate impact. So that would be my other one. I was trying to, the Ravens. The Ravens are the last of my top 5 that I wanted to mention. We talked about the Bateman thing, and then Owe, excuse me, Owe was really good value there. And you talk about going to the right kind of a team to develop the toolsy guy. He was Danielle Hunter is my comp, and he's a lot of people's comp for him. And it's the same thing of Danielle had, the perfect body, the perfect athleticism, but it was like, where were the sacks at LSU coming out? And that's why he fell down a bit. I think the NFL, was sort of acknowledging their mistake with guys like that in the form of the way that they valued Owe. And I think the Ravens are a perfect spot for him.
Well, here's what I'll say. It seems like, one, You guys got some winners going on tonight, cashed a lot of tickets on the draft prop side, and a lot more to come for round 2 tomorrow. Also, a lot more content to come all across NBC Sports Edge platforms. The NFL Draft Show, as I mentioned, on Twitter Spaces tomorrow at 1 p.m. Thor's going to be up all night working on his round 2 mock draft. So
how did Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah not go tonight? I do not get it. I'm going to spend all night thinking about that. I do not know how that kid's fell on the board. Yeah, exactly.
I think a lot of people were thrown by that, but of course, a lot more to come all on NBC Sports Edge throughout the rest of the draft, full draft coverage there. You guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time today. This was a really fun special edition of A Good Football Show, recapping the NFL draft in round 1. For Warren Sharp, Thor Nystrom, John Daigle, I'm Sara Perlman with NBC Sports and NBC Sports Edge. Good night. Enjoy the rest of the draft.